Alright, we're changing an axle here. We're illustration how to change an axle. One of the things we've done for this illustration purposes is we've pulled off the rear disc brake that normally mounts right here with two 12mm bolts. We've taken that off and set it back here just so you can see illustration of how to change the axle a little bit more clearly. First thing you want to do is obviously take off your, once you get all that out of the way, you can see where you're working with here. Here's your old axle right here. We're going to pull off this axle nut. Obviously it requires an air gun to pull that off, so once it's off, then what we're going to do is we're going to push this axle back out. We're going to pull off one of these bolts right here so we can drop back the spindle and allow this axle to pop out of place. So that's our next step, phase 2. Pull off the disc brake, set it down. We need a star wrench for that. I got it right here. We're going to pull off one of these bolts right here that holds the spindle on. Take care of this out of the way, and that's just basically so we can pull out our old axle and put in our new axle that we have. Here goes this. Of course, the whole thing's going to want to drop down when we do that. Push out the old axle. Now you can change views if you want. Come in and build a different view right here. More of an angle like this. What we're going to do now is pop out that old axle out of the differential. A couple different pops like that. Usually pop right out like that. If you have more difficulty getting the rear axle out a couple more times, a couple jerks like that usually take care of it. But don't get in there and pry with any kind of bar. Anything here. This is your gasket surface, and this is just pot metal around there. That stuff can really break off and chunk right there. Then you'd have to replace that whole side cover. We're going to take out the old snap ring that's in the old original axle and put it on the new axle. Here's the snap ring right here. Obviously on a workbench this will be a lot easier. Alright, new snap ring. It's got good tension to it. You can feel the tension in there. It goes out beyond the axle splines itself, so it's got a good alignment. You know it's going to lock in place real good. Check your inside ones. Put your finger in the inside here. Make sure that all your land grooves, everything, all your splines feel really nice. There's no debris in there. Make sure your oil looks good and clean. See if there's any kinds of grit in it. This all looks nice and clean. Make sure there's no metal, particles, that kind of stuff like that for wear or something chewing up in there. Make sure that everything looks nice and clean. Make sure that your actual splines are nice and straight. They're not twisted or anything like that. Make sure your gasket seal here looks really nice. There's no problems with it. It's all nice and clean. No signs of leakage before. So we're pretty much set for a plug-in of the new axle right here. Put in grease the splines up a little bit here so they slide in. Compare your old axle to your new axle. Just as it kind of make sure everything looks good. And basically they are a duplication. Exactly the way they should. 660s are different than the 700s. And let's see here. Get the splines lined up. And you got to get that detent. There we go. Feel that locked in there, nice and into place, solid as heck now. Right where it should be. The detent ring is locked into play. It's important to make sure that that ring gets locked in there because you don't want it falling out someplace down the road when you're on a trail ride or something like that. It's solid. It's in there. That's what you want. Okay, next thing we're going to do is tip up this outside spindle. Same time we put in the new axle. Fit it down here like this. Tip it up into the thing like that at the same time. Come back up here, pick up our old bolt we had before. somewhere along the way. There we go. Now we've got our axle coming out this other side here. Just the way it should be. Put on our rotor, make sure our cup's going to come out here perfect to the end. Do a quick little cycle of suspension. Go full droop. Fill that. Got a nice little run. Boots clear. All of our clearances look great. Just the way they should. Now I can tighten down this bolt, put on the axle shaft bolt. So we're tightening this bugger down now. It's a self-locking nut back here that's impregnated in the suspension itself. I'll come back and put specific torque on those later. To finish off the torque, I'll do a final torque on all these nuts and bolts everywhere on this thing with a torque wrench when we're all said and done. Come back with things where we can actually apply a lock nut, we will. Right now I'm just kind of showing as illustration of purposes. Pull out our axle all the way, push in this all the way, so make sure we get our full, what we need. Things all seated in where it should be. Put on our new axle nut. Take it down to torque specifications for your specific model that you have, whether it's Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, or whatever. Tighten her back up, drive the pin back down on the lock spot, or put the cotter key through it, put your brake system back on, and there's an axle assembly replacement.